Hey everyone, Brooke here, and I'm back with another video update for the latest release of Terminus, which is 0.55. So there's a lot to talk about on this, so I'll just hit the ground running. First off, I wanted to show you that the dashboard got updated, and it's just a small UI update, but you'll see that there's statistical information about the various records that you have within the system. And so you can click on these, like if you just want to jump to models, if you wanted to jump to playlists and so forth, that's all available to you. And it's really just a small update. It's just statistical information, but it kind of tightens up and cleans up the dashboard for you. And technically this actually came out in the previous release, but it really wasn't something to do a full video on. So I'm just including it in this release. So now that you know that, let's move on to talking about models. So models have got a nice update in which you can actually set the default palette now. So in the past, you couldn't do this, but let me just show you using our TRMNL model. And I'll go in here and you'll notice there's something new here. You can set the default palette. And that selection is available to you based on the allowed palettes. And that's all coming from our terminal API. Excuse me, that gets synchronized every 24 hours unless you've changed the background synchronization to be faster or slower based on your preference. But that's available to you now. So you can also change it, like if you go in and you edit the model, that selection that you saw on the previous screen, that's what allows you to have the drop-down selection here. And so I could switch it to 4 grays, hit save, and you'll see that that's the new default. Now there's something else I want to explain here. You can actually set it to nothing. I wouldn't really recommend doing this, but you can. And when you do, you'll see that it has nothing there. Now, what Terminus will do when it's set to none is it'll essentially default to kind of a black and white 1-bit. It's just trying to do something as best it can, given that it doesn't have any information. However, when the synchronizer runs, again, by default, it's every 24 hours, it'll detect that nothing's been set for this official model supported by our API, and it'll actually use the last one in the allowed list. So in this case, it would be black and white. Let me actually show you what this looks like. I'm going to simulate the background worker running. So OMR worker. So OMR is short for overmind restart, just my bash alias. But I'm going to run that, force that worker to restart. And if I keep refreshing the page here, yeah, there we go. You'll see that it's set from none to black and white. So what Terminus is doing is saying, hey, I synchronized. I noticed that there wasn't anything set for your default palette. I'm going to pick the last one on the list, and that's that. Now, you can go ahead and customize that, though, still. So if you're like, okay, great, Terminus set it to this, but I really want 16 grays. So I'll save it, and then you're like, well, the background worker, it's going to run again. Is it going to change it? Well, no, it won't, because it'll obey what your last setting was. So if I run that worker again, just to simulate the worker waking up and running this every 24 hours, I'll refresh the page just to make sure the worker went through, and you'll see that my setting did not change. So just letting you know that any setting that you change there won't be affected by the background worker. The last thing I want to do before I wrap up on palettes here for models is I want to go back to our TRMNL model, and this time I want to clone it. And I just want to show you that when you clone it, you'll have the same selection as the original model. However, once you save that, you can change it, of course, but once you save it, and we go back to the clone, and we'll edit it here again. And once you edit it, it'll actually give you the full gamut of palettes possible. And these are all the palettes that are supported by our official API at the moment. And the reason this is happening is because once you have a clone in the system, it's no longer part of the synchronization process because it's unique to Terminus, which means you can do anything you want with it. So that's also why you can have different palettes if you want to. So just FYI, it's really more of an advanced feature. Obviously, you would not want to do dangerous things here because you could have really, well, not dangerous, but just you could have some really weird behavior in the rendering of your screens if you pick a palette that totally doesn't work with your model. But just know that it's there as an advanced feature if you need it. All right, so we've talked about models and cloning. Let's actually move on, and I want to talk about playlists too. So I've never really done a video release of playlists, even when the feature came out, because I wasn't doing videos really at the time. But I do want to talk about it briefly. And sorry, I went a little fast there, but any of the playlists always have a slideshow. It's always through this little play button. And I'm going to show you my swing dance playlist because I'm using it as cue cards to basically practice different moves with my wife. And it's just a really fun way to learn and practice and get better at dancing. So in this case, I've got multiple screens here in my playlist. And the ability to go previous and go to the next item, go to the previous one, that's been there for a while. But what's new is you can go to the very first one in the list, the very last one, and then you also have nice stats to say, hey, look, you're on slide 5 of 15, so you know exactly where you are. So if I go previous here, you'll notice that I'm on slide 4. I'm on slide 3. If I go next, I'm on 4. I'm on 5 when I hit next again. I could go all the way to the first one. So there's the first one. And then I can all jump straight to the last one. And I just have a nice way to navigate around, which makes it really nice for basically just going through your playlist and wanting to explore them, make sure that they're right the way that you want to, and so forth. You can also click on this to go into full screen mode. You can hit escape to pop back out. And then the last thing I want to show you, and again, some of this has already been here, but I'm just kind of showing all the features, even though these are the new ones, the first and last, is that you've got keyboard shortcuts as well. So this tells you what the keyboard shortcuts are. So if I want to go to the previous slide, I can keep going backwards with my backwards key. If I want to go forwards, I can use my forwards key. If I want to use the left bracket, I can jump all the way to the beginning of my slideshow. And if I use the right bracket, I can jump all the way to the end of my slideshow. And if I hit F, I'll go straight into full screen and then escape to jump back out again. So anyway, just some niceties with the playlist. I hope you really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite features that I use all the time. So now that we've talked about playlists, let's jump into extensions. So there's actually 3 subcategories here that I want to talk about with extensions. And we'll end here and kind of wrap up this video. So the first is when you go into your extensions, there is a new exchanges area within your extension. And what this does is it allows you to manage your individual URLs. And you weren't able to ever do that before because it was always just a form field here, and you'd put each of your URLs on different lines. But you'd be forced to use the same HTTP header information with each one of those URLs. And that doesn't make sense if you have a bunch of different URLs going to different locations and they need different header information. So now that's fully customizable for you. So let me actually show you through the UI. The way this works is you'll now see it in the URL. You'll enter your URLs here. You'll do that by hitting the plus, and then you can put in header information. You can change your verb, whether it's a GET request or a POST request. You don't have URIs anymore. You have a template because you can put in liquid template here for rendering out your URIs, which means you can do dynamic URLs if you want to. So that's all available to you. The body's still there as before, but it's only used if you're doing a POST request. And then down below, if there's any data associated with it, if the URL resolves properly, it'll pull the data and cache it locally so you can inspect it here. And if there's any errors, you'll see errors as well, which is also something new to Terminus because you haven't really been able to look at some of the errors related around your HTTP requests. Now you can. So let me show you what that looks like. So you'll see that I have a random, I'm actually doing Buddha quotes. So actually, if I go back and I show you my preview, I'm just getting these Buddha quotes to render. If I go into my exchanges, and I look at, if I look at the data for it, you'll see that it's coming back as source 1, and there's all my data from that request. If I click on errors, you'll see that I don't have any errors, but let's actually simulate a situation where maybe I had a typo and I put X on there. And so that's no longer a valid API request. So I'll save it. It'll take just a moment. It's a background job. Actually, it's pretty quick, but if you refresh the page, the background job will fire, it'll make the request and then store the information. So if I click on it, you'll see that the data's gone. I don't have any data anymore, but I do have errors. And so that's that first source. There's the URL. We can immediately see that I have a typo. I'm getting HTML back. And if I scroll down, you'll see that it's a 404 not found and that it's coming back as MIME type text HTML. So straight up, we've definitely got a problem. So I'll just go ahead and fix that and then hit save. And then we'll just refresh this. There we go. Now it's all good. We'll go back in and you can see that the data's there and the errors are gone. And what's happening here is it's caching that so that it makes that request once, and unless you make any edits to your exchange, it won't update the data. But it will update when you do like a build, like a force build, or if you have your schedule set. So like in this case, it's building every minute. It'll constantly refresh that data for your exchanges. And again, that data shows up down here as well. Now, while we're talking about this, the data, the top level key has changed in Terminus. And what I mean by that is before it used to just be called source, but now every source starts with a number. So your first source is always going to be 1, and then after that it's going to be 2, and then it's going to be 3 and 4 and so forth. That is a slight change that you'll have to make to your template URLs, or sorry, your templates, your liquid templates, because if you had it as source before, it'll now be source 1. So just be aware of that, that you might have to make just a slight change to your templates. But hopefully it shouldn't be too annoying. You just need to change the numbering. And the reason that's being done is because now that you can do exchanges and you can add multiples, it's really nice to maybe experiment with things like you have a second source, a third source, and a fourth source. And you're playing around with it in your template, in your liquid template and so forth. But then you're like, nope, I really like this first one. I want to delete all the others. You don't have to keep coming back and renaming this from when it used to be source for just one URL. And then, putting the 1 on there or the 2 or whatever. It's just always going to default to 1. So again, just emphasizing that you might have to make a few edits there to your liquid template, but otherwise you should be fine. So now that we've talked about the exchanges, let's actually talk about the upgrade process, because when you upgrade to the new version of Terminus, this is actually going to end up being blank. But don't worry, the data is not lost. It's still there. I'm going to show you through how the upgrade script works. So I'm going to delete this, and you'll see that I have no exchanges in this point. The thing I want to emphasize is the columns for the original header, URL, and body, it's still there in the database. But you need to upgrade to actually convert it into an exchange. So the way to do that is there's a little script called bin exchange eyes, sorry. And if you run this, it'll go through and upgrade all your extensions. And you'll see it spit out like, hey, I upgraded extension 4, 53, 201, 202, and so forth. Then when you refresh this, you'll see that it's back, and your original settings prior to the upgrade are restored, but now they're as exchanges, so that you can manage this better. And again, this is short-lived, this upgrade script. It's actually in the documentation. So in the upgrade documentation here, it actually talks about this version and higher, that you must use this script. So it's just there temporarily. In the next version, actually probably next couple versions, it'll kind of stay, and then I'll remove it so that is no longer necessary. So that's how to do the upgrade. The last thing I want to talk about is, now that you know how that works, I want to go in and I wanted to show you a few extensions that you can import. So I'm going to delete these here. And it's in through the gallery. So if we go into the gallery, as you know, has always been here, but you weren't able to actually do imports. Well, the main thing I want to wrap up with today is you can do a full import now. Now there are some restrictions. For instance, like some plugins are not fully supported, so I'll try to import NeoCities here. And when I do that, you'll see that it's trying to use our new serverless transforms feature. That's not fully supported in Terminus. It is coming, but it's not fully supported, so it just prevents you from installing that because you won't get a good experience. So that's one example. But I want to show you a few that do work. So I'm going to take like the daily weather extension, and we'll search for it here, and then I'll import it. And when that happens, you'll see that it's a success, and then it's also linkable. So if you click on it, you'll see that it highlights to a link. And when you click on that, you'll immediately jump into that extension, and you can see it rendering here. So, and when you do the import, you'll notice that it's imported from terminal. There's the exchanges. There's the liquid template, and then any data or whatever that's associated with it would show up here. So that's an example of doing an import. Now, I want to show you before I wrap up too also what an example looks like for something that sort of imports but just needs a little finessing on your part. And again, the goal is to make this easier and better for you. But we can take like art of the day, which is a popular extension. There we go. And I'll import that and we'll click on it. And when we go to the preview here, you'll see that it looks like it's kind of broken. It's not working. And one of the problems is, and again, need to do more automation here, but it's actually using it's using a template. So you'll see here, it's using the template tag, and it actually has the wrong mapping of data. So what this needs to be is like source one, and then this needs to be source one.artwork from the data that's coming back. And then if you save that, and then you do a preview, you'll see that it's rendering properly. It's bringing in the image, it's rendering it. And that's just an example of some areas of imports. And again, this is all still in beta. It might need a little finessing on your part, but I'm just letting you know that that is available to you and you can kind of debug and tweak it. So that is imports. And I think, let me check my notes here. I think that's kind of everything I wanted to talk about. I guess the last thing is you can also, in the gallery, you can also download these. So if you want to download the extension as a raw zip and you just want to look at the contents of it, you can download and do that as well. Essentially, when you're doing the import, that's what Terminus is doing. It's just reading that zip file, unpacking it, doing all the import work and finessing the data, and then bringing it into the system so that you have it as an extension that you can use locally. So anyway, that's kind of all the updates in a nutshell. I really hope you like this release. If you have issues, as always, please jump into Discord or find me as logging issues on GitHub, and happy to address them. So thanks, and see you in the next release.